I just put new seals in my Dewalt framing nailer. You can see what the old ones look like. But when I put air to it, it didn't work right. I had a rapid fire situation. Now, in resolving the issue, I've seen that many people have had maybe not a rapid fire, but they've had a problem that relates back to their trigger. So I have the trigger valve here, and when I look it up, some can be kind of reasonable, but for this little piece, you're looking at 40 bucks or more. 40 bucks or more. So I found an eBay seller that sells the seals, and this is how I got them. So we'll try new O-rings on this and see how it works out. Here are my seals. So hopefully it works out. That's a lot better than $40 to $50 they're asking for a new unit. I've opened the package, and here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 O-rings. As is usual, I'm not expecting to use them all. I may, but I'm not expecting to. Let's take this apart and see what's in it. First thing, we'll pop this off. I need 2 hands to do it, so I'm just going to put a little screwdriver in there, pop it apart. I'll show you the result. This is what it looks like when I take it apart. We have the front, with the part that we push, that actually acts on a spring. Then there's a piston and a cylinder. Now if I take this push rod out, you can see it's got 2 small O-rings on that, which very likely may be 1 and 2. So we'll see how that goes. You'll see there's a push O-ring missing from here. I'm going to have to figure out where that is. I actually removed it, and that's why I'm making the video. That O-ring was hanging up in the cylinder, and that's what was causing the problem. So the next step, I'm going to remove these. Now, on this stainless piece, you're probably not going to hurt it, but the most important thing you have to remember is when you pull the O-ring off, you got to be very careful not to scratch, because they actually seal on a very, very tiny portion here and on the opposite side. You know, let's say it was on the stem. So there's a very tiny portion. So if you scratch that, it can leak. So because I need 2 hands, I'm going to remove it. And what I'm actually probably going to do is I'm probably going to take a razor blade and split it very carefully without going all the way through, and then pull it off and tear it. So I'll remove that and show you the end product. Okay, let me just show you on this one. I'll just take the razor, I can just get underneath it with this razor. X-Acto knife would work really well. Just like that. Right there. And what it seems is on these Dewalt air guns, whatever this material is, these O-rings are made out of, this is where the failure is. Should have been a warranty or recall. My air gun is 12 years old. Might have 1,000 nails through it. And it's just kind of pathetic that this little piece is what failed. Because it was on, it was the same thing on the piston and the same thing inside the body. Okay, so I'm going to take these 2 O-rings and I'm going to just slide them on there. I need 2 hands, so I'll show you the end product. So there was what the push pin, whatever it's called, looks like with a new O-ring. There's the old O-ring here. There's your old O-ring. and here's 2 new ones. When I put them on, I use a suitable lubricant right here. I just dipped it in the lubricant. A word on lubricants: make sure your lubricant is known not to affect the rubber O-ring. Now, there's a lot of different kinds of O-rings out there. Some are butyl. Can't even think of right now all the names, but obviously this one was not a long-term O-ring. It may have worked really well for what it was, but so okay, let's move on. Let's try and do the O-rings on this this piston. So there's your O-rings for this piston. This O-ring is arguably one of the most important O-rings, as it's what seals the piston and keeps the air from firing. Once that seal is broken on this O-ring, it causes the gun to fire. So that's one you don't want to leak. Now, another important thing is when you put the O-rings on, you want them lubed, so that really will alleviate most of the problem, but you got to be careful as you roll it on or slide it on. You got to be careful it doesn't spin, because you don't want it twisted, because not only will that deform the O-ring, make it smaller, but it deforms it and makes it smaller. You don't want it in that twisted, lengthened position. Typically, having it lubricated will prevent that, but it's always something to look for. And in larger diameter O-rings, like, for example, one like this, that's something you have to worry about more. So there they are in place. Now, for me looking at this O-ring here actually appears a little bigger than this one, but so long as it seals, that's what's important. And again, when you put the O-ring on, if you grab it, I'm not a hand model, but if you grab it and kind of rotate it and make sure it's all free, that'll alleviate the twisting problem too. So we'll move on to the final piece, which is this body. And apparently we have these 2 O-rings. So we'll pop off the existing O-rings first. Okay, so the first thing after you take them off is you want to set them side by side. You can even stack them. Make sure they're about right. Now, in these 2, you can see the color difference. These 2, you don't want to confuse them, but I'm sure if you grab this one, compare the feel to this one, hopefully this one's a little more pliable. Now, I don't feel a whole lot of difference, so that means if I upset them, probably doesn't matter, except when I remove this one, I may have nicked it. So you want to be careful to make sure you know which is which. So we'll take these. Actually, that'd be the good one, because this is the old one. We'll take these and put them on and see how they go. Okay, so that's how it looks when it's complete, put back together. Now, I know along the way, I didn't clean these. And there's a couple schools of thought on that. One would be to just take a lint-free cloth and wipe it off. Another would be to take it and wash it with soap and water. But the last thing you want to do is spray it with any kind of solvent, because not knowing the characteristic of this plastic, if you get some kind of solvent on it, it may make it brittle. I've cleaned parts before and they just crumbled, just fell right into pieces. So reusing a part like this, you're best to just wipe it with a lint-free cloth, or if you think it's clean enough, just put the O-rings on and let it go. So for assembly, there should have been enough oil on it to assemble it. And no reason to show it, because assembly is the reverse of disassembly. A couple of things to note is when you put that piston inside the cylinder, make sure you don't get caught on this edge, because that edge right there, if the O-ring gets caught on there, you can shear it off. So you got to kind of carefully put it in straight and twist it. This has 2 of those windows. It's kind of like a 2-stroke engine. It's got 2 of those windows, and just carefully put it in so it doesn't get caught on that. The same applies to this other end. There's the O-ring that seemed to have the texture, the dull finish. That O-ring has to go inside of here. And again, you have to put it on kind of straight. Make sure it's got lubricant on it, which it should have enough lube. And that's where it goes. So it's hard to do one-handed, but I just did a little back and forth where I took the piston from this side and I pushed it, and then I pushed this to make it operate, and back and forth to make sure it's all good and free. So we'll put it back in the gun and see if it works. Well, this is go time. So I put the magazine back on it, and I know because I just put the magazine on it, there's no nails in it. So for safety's sake, let's hook up the air with no nails. And let's try it with no nails. There you go, folks. Okay. This is a tell-all. Right there. Beautiful. So it works. Now, I'm going to digress and talk about this more in a different video. But repair this thing should have been about $11. So I'll talk about that in a different video. But so far, it works. My 11-year-old Dewalt pneumatic nailer that didn't work, I just was able to fix. So thanks for watching.